Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world that you are joining in from. A very warm welcome to this discussion. It will be wonderful if you can just type into the comments where you are dialing in from, just to get an idea of how global the audience is and where people are dialing in from. My name is Raja Rajamannar, and I'm the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer of MasterCard. And I also serve as the company's president for its healthcare business. I have also written a book called Quantum Marketing. This is almost coming up to 2 years now, which has gone on to become a Wall Street Journal bestseller, which I feel very grateful for, has won a number of awards, and also has been now published in 8 different languages, the latest one being in Japanese. So very, very grateful for the momentum. Now, the whole premise of quantum marketing is to say that the world is dramatically changing, driven by technologies, 24 technologies actually coming at us like a tsunami, a deluge of data, and tectonic shifts in the cultures across the world. So these necessitate us to rethink marketing, to reimagine marketing, and do it in a very different way. I call it the 5th paradigm of marketing. And the way we do marketing here is what I call as quantum marketing. And to sort of extend from the book and to engage audiences, I have started writing this newsletter called Quantum Marketing Sense Live. And I just saw yesterday that the subscription has exceeded 100,000. So all of you who have subscribed, thank you very much for it. And your participation and your numbers and your comments, they are the ones which energize and inspire me to keep putting out more and more that hopefully you'll find a lot of value in. And as a further extension of that, I started this LinkedIn Live series, bringing in the best thought leaders, people who are at the cutting edge, people who have got the right experience and the right profile, the right kind of gravitas as far as our industry goes. And they're doing extraordinary things in their respective companies or even at the industry level. So, in fact, we had 11 speakers or guests so far, and we are getting better and better in terms of the quality of the guests. And so today, I'm absolutely delighted to have Conny Braams. She is the Chief Digital and Commercial Officer of Unilever, which you know is the gigantic packaged goods company, which I happen to be an alum of as well. And so we have a special connection between me and Conny. And so I'm really delighted that she is on this, discussion that I'm going to have with her. So Conny, a very, very warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Raja. And I'm really privileged to be here and be part of the series that you put together. And congratulations with now also your book on in Japanese. So what a wonderful thing to leave as a legacy.
Thank you so very much, Conny. And in fact, you have had an incredibly successful career, and you have been more than 30 years at Unilever. And it would be wonderful if you can just tell us your journey, because in these days where maybe the average stint where someone sticks with the company is 3 years, and so, my God, you have been there with them for 3 years. You are here for 30 years and still going strong and leading not just marketing, but you're leading their sales, the entire commercial operations, basically, and also the digital. So I think probably you're the broadest marketing professional in terms of the number of areas that are under your umbrella. If you can just share how your career journey has been and what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, of course, Raja, I gladly do so. And thanks again for inviting me. Now, as you nicely put, indeed, I'm Unilever's Chief Digital and Commercial Officer. And that is actually a role that didn't exist in Unilever 6 months ago. So here we go with the influence of tech and digital. But a bit back to your question, and then I come on to my new role. Yes, 32 years at Unilever, and I started as a marketing trainee. I started after university, then I held several roles in sales, marketing, digital, communications, external affairs I've done. And then mostly I spent my time in general management. And I've worked and I've lived across developed markets and developing countries. Have lived 5.5 years happily in Singapore as well. So I know a bit about the Asian markets. And then I got back to my home country, the Netherlands, for the ones who haven't figured that out yet by my accent. So, and I led Unilever in the Benelux. So the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg, then Europe. And actually in January 2020, I was appointed to the Unilever executive as the first, and it was then called the Chief Digital and Marketing Officer. But then actually this year we expanded the role further to integrate sales as a reflection of what we see happening externally. And I'm sure we get onto that. And now I'm responsible for the end-to-end digital transformation of Unilever, for marketing, for sales. And actually that is a portfolio of more than 400 brands, like, well, you just mentioned it, but brands like Dove, Hellmann's, Ben & Jerry's, Paula's Choice, Lifebuoy, Knorr. And when I reflected on it, Raja, because of course I am often asked as well, 32 years and you still seem to enjoy it. You have a lot of energy. How come? And I think the first thing to say is apparently my values are very close to the values of the company. And so that really is fitting. And I'm just motivated by the vision Unilever has. So deliver winning performance, but by being the global leader in sustainable business. And I love the 3 beliefs under which we do that, and you're very familiar with them. So we really believe that companies with purpose last, people with purpose thrive, and brands with purpose grow. And that's kept me going for the last 32 years. And as I just said, never a dull moment. Only 6 months now I've integrated sales as well, and basically driven by digital commerce. And that is, again, a new territory and a new journey, a new chapter in the journey of my career.
Which is absolutely awe-inspiring, I must say. I have had the privilege of working with Unilever for about 7.5 years out of India. And I think that's where I had all my foundational, the foundations for my marketing knowledge was gained from Unilever and the experience there, which was extraordinary. And one of those principles they had in those days was, in order to be a good marketing person, you also have to have experience in functions outside of marketing, particularly sales. So it's really amazing to see how you have reached the pinnacle of these 2 functions and then overseeing both of them end to end, which is fantastic. And kudos to you and congratulations to you. What an amazing journey it is. Now, talking of, one of the key things that you said, which has propelled this kind of integration, was the digital transformation that we are witnessing. As I have written in the book, and you have been kind to give me a good comment on the book that I proudly sort of show off to folks, which is that we are going to be deluged, literally, by more than 24 new technologies. They're literally coming at us like a tsunami, right? Whether artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, blockchains, cryptos, NFTs, the whole range of things which are happening. And pretty dramatic, I would say, and unprecedented. In the past, whenever there were 2 or so technologies that were coming at a time, marketing will be ushered into the next paradigm. But now we've got 24 technologies which are ushering us into the 5th paradigm. Now, from your perspective, how do all these new technologies, how are they going to impact consumer experience? And how a marketing giant and a consumer giant like Unilever is actually looking at that? And in terms of how do you see how the future is evolving over the coming years?
Yeah, big question, Raja. So let me first start by acknowledging that Unilever has been around for quite some time. And we have been, I think one of the reasons why we're still around is because we have a tendency to adapt quickly to changing environments. Now, I must say indeed that the tech revolution is quite a big one, but it isn't our first rodeo. So that is really good to know. Secondly, what I tend to do is to take a look at the things that don't change. And the things that don't change for me in marketing is the need for creativity. And we all know that creativity still accounts for, let's say, 50% or 49% of our return on investment. So marketeers will always be tasked with getting the right message to the right person at the right time and be noticed. So, and an explosion of new tech and emerging channels and more touch points makes it actually only more interesting, but also more challenging to cut through the noise via creativity. Now, and then if you think really about what is really changing, we always start with, as you probably have done in your first 7 years as well, and if still doing it, hopefully, by what is now really changing for the consumer and the customer. And what is changing for the consumer is obviously that there is a radical change in things like last mile delivery, new brands coming up, digital native brands coming up. But I think also very importantly, the distinction that we had in the past between different kind of channels. So there were content channels, entertainment channels, commerce channels, that is now all blurring, because you can buy on Facebook, we can sell via Instagram, we can build brands on Amazon or on any other retail channel. So there's really blurring lines between marketing and sales. And the things I tend to then do within Unilever with my team is really think about, what does it now mean for the people working in Unilever, that we see all this change happening with the consumer and the customer. And firstly, it brings about the point that we've always been good at, is upskilling people, making sure we do a lot in inspiration and education, that we create the ground for people to experiment, because we don't know all the answers from the start. So we need to learn and we need to constantly pivot. But then I think what is really important in the role that I play and you play, Raja, is that we set our business up for success, that we organize in a way that makes it possible for people to really benefit from this changing environment. And that is actually one of the reasons why we put marketing and sales now together, because we feel that you can't see it separately anymore. And in the big change, and hopefully some of the listeners to these discussions will have read about it, is Unilever has gone through quite a massive change in organizational structure. And the change we've made was basically to make us simpler, to make us faster, and make us more category focused. And that's what we call the Unilever Compass organization. And I have used that moment to also think about what is now coming at us from a marketing and sales perspective, and how can we set ourselves up for more success. And if the Compass organization wouldn't have happened, Raja, I probably would have done the same. But now it's always better to do that as an integrated change program. And what I've done is I've taken our digital hubs, which were hubs where most of the digital marketeers were working, and now integrated digital commerce. I integrated media into it, because only when you take a look at it together, I think we can be a company that will we'll take benefit of all the tech coming at us and come out of it in a better way. So I'm sure that there's lots of other things than building capability or having the right talent, experimenting all the time, and having the right organizational structure. But I think with that, you've got quite some components that make an organization like Unilever, who's always known to be upskilling marketeers and making sure that we've got the best talent, now also capable of not only surviving, but really thriving in this new in this new context that we created.
Yeah, in fact, I think, in the how it trains people up and upskills people constantly, having seen it firsthand and experienced it firsthand, I can vouch for it. It's absolutely incredible. And it's really game changing. And, literally, Unilever has become the university of marketing in many ways, it's extraordinary. Now, just to sort of, you talked about how things are all interconnected or, interdependent and so on. Now, the question, one thing I have is, in this interconnected world, for companies like, for example, MasterCard, we look at consumers being really global, not necessarily in a particular market only. They're traveling all the time, and they send money, for example, to other parts of the world. They buy goods and items from other parts of the world and so on. So we have got something called a cross-border strategy and cross-border marketing, etc. In the context of Unilever, how does this interconnectedness or the globality of the citizens, or the global citizens of the world, how does that play out?
Yeah, we, of course, Raja, we see the same. So a lot of our brands travel much easier than probably in the past. But I need to acknowledge, we also have brands that are local jewels, and we're very proud of them. Sometimes they're positioned on a very local insight, but mostly they're part of a family of brands that we don't change the name for, but actually their positioning is exactly the same. And in this complexity of having, people more as global citizens, seeing that trends are universal, that tech, which is also loving scale and actually comes at us at scale and at speed, what we try to also do is make things a little bit simpler for our marketeers, because otherwise you might get overwhelmed. So how do you make it simpler? Is, okay, have one approach. So if in the end, in doubt, you go back to the new approach we have to marketing, and we call it get on the front line. And get on the front line for us means get very close to consumers. And it is 3 principles you need to do as every marketeer in the world. First, get real. really take a good combination of data and empathy, be close to the true realities of our world, and try to solve the real problems and the real pain points of consumers. The second one for us is do good. So how can you put the purpose at the heart of our brands and then really spur real positive change for society and the environment? And the third one is what we talked about already, be unmissable. How can your brand stand out in culture and be effortless to buy? Because in everything we do, we want to be first to mind, first to find, no matter what country, no matter how global or local a brand is. And that, I think, is a good framework to get back to. And you talked about the University of Marketing. Also in universities, we need to update our curriculum all the time. And I think with this new philosophy that we have basically launched 2 years ago now, I think we cut through the clutter of everything that's happening. If there's 3 things you need to do, get real, get out there, be on the front line, do good with your brands, because that's one of the attractions of marketeers. You can really impact the world. But for that, you need to be noticed. So you need to be unmissable. So that is a bit what I would say, Raja.
It's amazing, and I think a couple of points which come to my mind. One is, the nugget that you're saying, first to mind and first to find. Beautiful encapsulating what we try to do as marketers in terms of discoverability and share of mind and all the good things, and something pretty fascinating. Now, you just briefly touched upon purpose. And I know that Unilever has been incredibly purpose-driven, as has been MasterCard. And not surprisingly, both the companies have been partnering in several countries with initiatives like Jazaduka, etc., where basically we are trying to help, micro merchants to really find a footing and then to hopefully get the advantages of a digital economy with the support of 2 big brands, Unilever on one side, and then you've got MasterCard on the other side. And that's something fantastic. Now, there is always a ton of criticism saying that purpose, it's more about purpose washing. And purpose doesn't really have a direct impact. And whatever the results are talking about, they are more meant for the sound bites of the CEOs, or to make a Davos, or to write an annual reports and things like that. I'm sure you would have heard this as well multiple times. And give your take uncensored.
Yeah, so I think the first thing to say, Raja, and indeed, we have found each other very often in sustainability. Because I think both our companies that we work for, we want to build a more sustainable world. And sustainability is for us, and I know it's true for you as well, is embedded across the whole entire value chain of a company. It isn't just about marketing. Sustainability is the way you do business, the how you do things. So thinking about regenerative nature for our foods products, or thinking about what's the alternative to plastics, or how can we get more to PCR, less plastics. No plastics. It is about our factories where we want to create less waste. It is about challenges we put on our suppliers on living wages, etc. So sustainability is actually across. And I don't hear a lot of critics about that. Where sometimes we're being challenged is on purpose, which is a choice in marketing. And that is, purpose is already being established as one of the levers to grow brand power. And we know that this correlation, that it's not Unilever research, it's Kantar research, it's across 122,000 brands. And we know that purpose grows brand power, and brand power drives market share and growth. So there is a way to really use purpose as your continuous flywheel for growth. However, we've learned a couple of things. So first thing is, you always need to start in marketing with a very good value proposition. So superior product against the right price. That's where it all starts. If you don't have that, purpose doesn't make it any better. So first you have a value proposition, and then values come into play. The second thing we've learned is that it isn't just any purpose. So purpose really needs to be close to the authenticity of the brand. It needs to stand for the category benefit. It needs to be memorable for people and logically be connected. And then you need to invest in it. You can't say after 3 months, oh, I've established a purpose. No, it needs 3 years or longer to, after you've established yourself a good value proposition, to also get values in. And that's why it's hard. So it's hard to get it right. But I also don't believe, Raja, in what you also see now is, if a brand isn't born by purpose, you can never add a purpose. We've got Hellmann's as a beautiful example of a brand that was never born with a purpose. But if you really think about it, we now with Hellmann's want to make taste, not waste, meaning don't throw away your leftovers that you have in the fridge. Use mayonnaise to make something powerful of it. And that reduces food waste. And it's very logical for consumers to see how a mayonnaise as a category can be used to prevent food waste. So there's a lot of learning in purpose. There's also choices to be made, because of course you can also build a brand without a purpose. But within Unilever, we believe that the best way to do good is have brands with purpose. And we're actually on a journey to prove to the whole world that it isn't just correlation between purpose and growth, but that there's causation between purpose and growth. So this is certainly an area I won't let go. This is one that we are continuing to prove.
Awesome. In fact, I couldn't agree more with you. It's not just that consumers are demanding that brands be purpose-driven in a genuine, authentic way. If you fake it, they will sniff you out from a mile distance. So it's a question of having that authenticity, sincerity, and consistency in terms of your commitment, not the shiny penny kind of a syndrome where today this is my purpose, tomorrow it is something else, and after tomorrow it is something else. So the consistency part of it is very, very critical. Now, one of the other interesting things, in fact, when it comes to purpose-driven marketing, other than the fact that consumers expect it, in our own case at MasterCard, what we have really found is purpose-drivenness can also be a true competitive advantage. Now, you're not doing purpose with the idea of gaining competitive advantage. Purpose is born in your heart. You have a North Star, you want to follow your North Star. But having said that, what we have found time and again is when something is purpose-driven in a genuine way, the company, in other words, it gets a significant competitive advantage and measurable results in terms of ROI. That brings me to one interesting question to you. In the case of a company like ours at MasterCard, for example, if I'm testing out my ROI hypothesis, I have real-time data all the time. So for example, if there are two cities and I'm running promotion in one and not in the other one, as the swipes of the card or the taps of the card are happening, I get to see what is happening then and there itself. In the case of somebody like a Unilever, where you've got a whole supply chain, and then when you run a campaign, things go off the shelves at the retailer, but then that doesn't necessarily get translated to your information on a real-time basis. How do you actually look at your ROIs and doing what we call here as real-time marketing? How do you sort of address that kind of a real-time marketing in your context?
Yeah, it's a good question, Raja. And I think also it's an area where there's a lot of developments because in the end, ROI was and will remain a center of attention, of course, with the media investments that we do. Now, we used to do marketing mix modeling. You'll probably remember we did that once a year. And then we took a look at all the different dimensions, not just media, but product, price, promotion. And then we try to estimate which are the biggest levers for growth and which are the more efficient levers for growth. Now, nowadays, we have much better ways to do it. So we can do this way more frequently. We can include more variables. But of course, one of the things that we are working together with our customers on is to have real-time data. So, and that real-time data comes in different ways and forms. But what we do see is more and more retailers see also the advantage of sharing with us in a consented and an anonymized way their sales data so that they also benefit from the patterns that we see, that we can really shift in time our investments and make sure that we reach consumers with the right message, target much better at the right moment in time. So for us, what is really important is that we have learned from our direct to consumer businesses. So we have quite a few, especially in the US, the liquid IVs, our Ollie business, our Smarty Pens, but also our Prestige business. We've learned how they optimize real time. And we've taken that learnings to how can you now do that for the rest of your portfolio and really make sure that you find the right balance. And I think that's one of the most difficult things in marketing still is between how much money do we invest in performance marketing and drive short-term sales? And how much do we invest in building real brand equity? And how much is the overlap between the two? Because actually, with this whole convergence going on between media, entertainment, and commerce, we now build brands and we convert to sales at the same time. And we know, Raja, that the effect of brand power is normally in building that is multi-months, is probably a lot longer than the performance marketing we do. So we see these patterns, we have it all, and I think machine learning and artificial intelligence helps us a lot in these building these models to really make sure that also we, even though we don't do the last sale, have found ways to really be up to date with what is happening on a daily basis, so that we can indeed in time and on time make sure that we shift things in our media mix, but we also work on the more longer term levers like product innovation, superiority, and the other mix elements we've got available in marketing.
That's fantastic. And you just touched upon AI and machine learning, Connie. Now, typically, when you ask people in terms of the more sophisticated companies which are deploying all these new technologies, the Web3, the metaverse, and everything that goes into that entire ecosystem, people immediately start pointing towards the Silicon Valley type of companies and not the traditional giants like Unilever. And you have, and I know this, but for the sake of the audience, I do want to ask you the question, which is that you have been doing amazing amount of stuff across different areas of what is, say, for example, Web3 or metaverse or whatever it is there. Can you just highlight what is your own view on Web3? And number two, what do you think companies should be thinking about Web3, whether it is in the packaged goods industry or in the marketing community at large, particularly addressed to the companies which are not technology companies or not the Silicon Valley companies? Because for them, they look at it as second nature. But the perception is, no, the traditional giants are in classical marketing, which means they are a little obsolete and they're not concurrent, which is anything but true, based on what I know of Unilever. If you can just shine some light on that for our audience, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I gladly do so, Raja. And you and I know that we both talked about it in the WFA Athens conference, which is now almost a year ago. And I think Web3 is really prime for experimentation. So what have we done? First of all, of course, we follow all the trends that are happening. We've got a multifunctional team working on it. We call it the Web3 Collective, and we experiment. So what have we been doing? We do things, and maybe people don't think about that, but we have an oral care brand, and it's called Close Up. For the ones who are listening in from Asia, they will be more familiar with it. And Close Up has always been a catalyst of bringing people closer together and basically inspiring couples to love freely. And what have we done? We have worked together with Decentraland, and we've created a city hall of love. And the freedom to love is actually not a universal right for all. So the Close Up City Hall of Love in Decentraland, we created an immersive experience where couples of all kinds could immortalize their love on the blockchain and mint their own NFT marriage certificate, and then celebrate together with guests. And it's a fun way of bringing your brand into something that people are really immersed into. So we got loads of really positive comment, and it is a new way of building your brand power, of course. And another fun example is with our brand called Degree, or sometimes it's called Rexona in other markets. We worked together with Decentraland. And basically what we did is we had organized the first marathon in the metaverse. But we wanted to be a bit special. So that's why we said it needs to be more inclusive. And more inclusive, because that's what we're building with the brands, a more inclusive culture of movement. And you've probably seen a couple of product innovations for people to always be able to use Rexona and Degree, no matter what disabilities you suffer. And actually what they've done, the Rexona brand, they've sparked a conversation on why representation in movement matters, both in the digital and in the physical space. So there's plenty of examples, and I just mentioned two. But I think it is time for experimentation, making sure that in gaming, our brands are being an integral part. And add something special to the whole gaming experience, which is, I think, one of the first things we see that are relevant for our brands. Now, on your question is, okay, what do we as marketeers need to do? I think, first of all, experimenting. But then secondly, we also need to be aware that a lot of things are that we don't like about Web3. We have an ability to influence for Web 2. We can influence for Web 3, and not reactively, because these things just happen to appear on Web 2, but now proactively making sure that this is really a space where trust is really portrayed from all sort of sides. Because let's be honest, we shouldn't shy away from the fact that from social media, there's a lot of developments that actually we never designed for, but they just happened. And we think that if we don't act now, safety will not be coded into Web3 early on, and it will be much harder later on to secure it down the line. So we really need to be thoughtfully designing for it with the highest principle of ethics, transparency, and choice. And I think one of the quotes that we both used is, the currency of Web3 is actually not crypto, but it is trust. So it is now the time to really work on that. And then coming on to your second question, which is a bit broader, of what do marketeers need to pay close attention to? I think you've mentioned quite a few already. I would say from a tech perspective, everything to do with sustainability innovations. How can we prevent food waste, limit uses of plastics, be part of a waste-free world, regenerative nature, and that has a lot of technological innovation in it. And another one you mentioned is artificial intelligence. And applied AI, I think, is really at a tipping point at this moment. I think everybody's now having fun with chat GPT, and of course, have you tried your own name on it and see if if you are indeed the person that chat GPT describes. But I think it has a multitude of possibilities, whether it is predictive analytics so that we can see trends much quicker in this rapidly changing world, or streamlining but then personalized way, or that we remain privacy compliant, or actually, and I think that's the ultimate aim, how can we really use it in creative tooling to build reputation of our brands and bring us in connection with consumers in different ways. So I honestly believe, if there's just two things I can mention, Raja, here, of all the technologies that you said, I think let's take a look at how tech can help, how we can have tech for good, is probably the phrase, and also how artificial intelligence can play a role across our whole value chain.
Brilliant. Brilliant. In fact, I think this is, absolutely, what you call very needed clarion cry, if I were to say, which is, on the one hand, Web3 doesn't have to be a fait accompli, but we have an opportunity to shape Web3 based on what we have seen as the pitfalls in Web2. And I think marketers have to really jump in and to help shape it, as opposed to leave it to the Silicon Valley and the technology giants to do what they do, and then we are then on the receiving end. That should not happen. That's one part of it. The second thing, it also, at a nostalgic level, evokes memories. When Close-Up was first launched in India, it was in blue color and in red color. And I was fighting on the streets of North India at the time, launching the product for the first time in India. And it's amazing. The what you have spoken about as the brand positioning, it was exactly the same then. And it's the same thing today, which you are also taking into metaverse, which talks about the consistency. And your earlier point, there are certain principles and foundations that don't change. Like, for example, trust or love or whatever. They are universal and they are probably timeless. And bringing those really into play constantly and over time, that's what I think is priceless. So I had to bring in my MasterCard angle there. So, but the point is, it's fascinating to hear these examples of how you have actually taken Close-Up into metaverse and created that space for love and all that, which is fascinating. Now, two things. When we talk of Web3, one of the things first thing based on the experiences in Web2, which comes to mind, is about brand safety. Right? And because of the kind of pitfalls that there can be there, and which we have witnessed ample, and we are still grappling with those safety issues, both the safety of the whole space for the people and safety from a brand perspective. When you look at Web3, and also even in the traditional Web2 itself, still Web3 really becomes a massive universal phenomenon. How do you look at brand safety in that context, and any pointers for marketers you have?
Yeah, it's fundamental for us, Raja, as you say. And you know that Unilever has always been a driving force to encourage transparent and fraud-free digital ecosystem. And first we did it a bit on our own because we said, okay, we're not going to work together with, or we only want to work together, let's say it positively, with responsible platforms, responsible content, responsible infrastructure. Only to find out that actually when we came together in GARM, which is the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, actually our impact was a lot bigger. So a lot of things are nowadays being done in partnership. We can't rely on just one company or one platform or one NGO or one government to change the world. I think more and more we see, if we want to create an ecosystem that is safe for us to be a part of, and it can be trusted by consumers and by actually the people on this planet, we need to find new ways of working together. And I think GARM, as this global alliance, is one of the things that has worked really well, because now we have established standards. So common definition, what is harmful for kids, what is harmful advertising, how can we improve and create common brand safety tools in the whole industry, and how do we keep each other to account and have the right discussion so that there's verification happening, there's oversight happening. And I think in Web3 we can take it even one level up, Raja. We now need to not only take a look at, okay, what is privacy, what is security, but what are the ethics actually around it? So how do we make sure that we have a data ethics program, and to hold ourselves and also our partners, but everyone in the industry, to the highest standards of ethics and transparency in data. So I think we need to look beyond regulation, but really, as an industry, champion this ethical use of consumer data, because in the end, we have a responsibility to inspire trust in our brands, but also in our industry and in our profession, that we want to do the right things. And I think we can only do that if we raise to the highest ethical standards and jointly define them. And then I think we can drive positive change in society. So I think there is a real good opportunity to use Web3 and everything that's coming now to do this from the start and really make sure that, of course, our brands are safe, that people feel safe when they're going into these new platforms, but also with hindsight that we correct what we did wrong in Web 2.
Yeah, in fact, I just want to elaborate for our audience just a couple of sentences about WFA and about GARM, right? WFA is the World Federation of Advertisers, and it has got membership from around the world. All the big brands and the small brands are all members of it. And collectively, the marketing spend of these members is more than $1 trillion annually. So it's got a real significant amount of marketing spend in this association, so to speak, in the membership of the association. So the association has decided to take charge of one of the issues facing our industry, which is in terms of brand safety, and also making internet a safe place. And in that, with that objective, we formed, in fact, both Conny and I, we are on the board of WFA. So what we have done is to form this alliance called the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, or GARM, as it is called, because no single company might have, however big it is, the negotiating power to hold the various platforms accountable and actually make them act. But collectively, if we group together as an industry behind a particular cause or a purpose, then things can happen. That's exactly what is happening. And even basic things like what is harmful content. So what is my definition of harmful content could be very different from Connie's definition versus somebody else. So we're coming to the common definitions and then discussing with the various platforms, media platforms, to say, these is what we have to go by. You need to have third-party auditing, because as marketers, we need to understand what we are getting in return for our money. Are our ads being seen by bots or by real people, etc.? So it's a very thorough kind of a work that has been done. And if any one of you have not are not too familiar with this, I would strongly encourage you to visit the WFA website and look at some of the white papers as well as GARM, Google for GARM, and you'll find a ton of stuff there, which is very meaningful work. And to what Conny has mentioned before, shaping Web3, this is going to be a foundational as a building block to get to that safe Web3. Now, Conny, I know we have got just about 3-4 minutes to go, and I'll quickly ask you 2 questions. The first one is a lot of marketers are sort of in a little bit of a difficult situation today, because there is a prognosis that there could be recession, there could be inflation, there could be a whole bunch of things that might be a little bit of dark clouds on the horizon. So marketing investments are under pressure, and CFOs and CEOs are being a little conservative, appropriately so. So in this kind of a situation, what is your own outlook for 2023 and your advice for marketers? That is my first question, and then I have got one last question after that, which should be pretty quick.
No, you're right. I think the global recessionary environment is a difficult one to navigate through, Raja. My only advice to my fellow marketeers is whenever there's a need to increase prices, it is even more important that your brand can take that. So brand power is really important. So make sure that you continue to build your brand power. And my other advice in that is never waste a good crisis. So if we are going into recessionary environments, how can businesses, and specifically marketing, play a bigger role in making the world a better place and in creating a better future for all? So if you've got a more limited budgets, make sure that you really think about what is the messaging I want to portray and how can I set myself up to really be a force for good. And that will go a long way. Also with managing the energy in sometimes a slightly more difficult environment. But let's face it, the world will remain very dynamic, Raja. And it's not that the world is now more dynamic in this age than it was probably 100 years ago. The only thing is we know more about it. We live in this information age. And we know one thing for certain, that we see an acceleration of climate change. So whatever we can do to in business and specifically marketing, I think it's worthwhile every minute.
Awesome. Now that brings me to the last question for the audience to know a little bit about Conny, the person, not the professional. So what are your personal passions? And if I can ask you, what is priceless to you?
What is, sorry, Raja?
Priceless to you.
What about family, friends, exploring the world? And I was fortunate enough to live in many places. I'm fortunate that my 2 daughters, Raja, are both in the Netherlands now. So, but it's only for a month. Then they fly out again. Giving them roots and wings has a negative side to it as well, because the wings are sometimes winning. But I love it if we can be together. And I think what is, for me, really important is creating the context for people to flourish. There's no magical recipe to it. I always try to reflect well on, am I still doing what I love to do? And if not, how can I change it and prioritize the things that give me energy and recharge if you feel that is needed. But luckily, I'm born with a lot of energy, so I can combine this massive job with enough time to recharge, explore the world, but also contribute to making it a little bit better.
Brilliant. Conny, thank you so very much. This has been fantastic. I wish you had given us 2 hours to talk and not just 45 minutes. But we are grateful for what we got. Thank you so very much. Hopefully, we'll do it again sometime in the future. But to the audience, I hope you have enjoyed the conversation and have picked up some points that are of value to you. This is all about you and what is of value to you, right? So please do write in. Please send me your comments. What did you like? What did you not like? What would you like to see? Who would you like to see being brought in for future chats, etc.? And would really welcome those inputs as we keep shaping this quantum marketing live sessions into the future. And on that note, thank you, everyone. Please be safe. And Conny, again, thank you so very much. Please take care and hope to see you again pretty soon. Thank you very much.